All right. Streams of Light podcast. Coming to you live from YouTube on the Streams of Light channel. Beautiful day in Southern California. 4 p.m. Pacific time. We're having great weather as usual out here. And I've got a treat for you today. You know, there's some things that keep coming up over and over again in discussions I'm having with friends and just with other people in life. And I think it came up a lot in the last year. In the last year, there's a lot of heavy stuff going on. And so, this feeling of being separate and being alone is a recurring, not only a theme or a topic of discussion. It's more than anything. It's like a disease that spreads across the country. And, being alone or being in a solitary situation is different than what we feel sometimes when we've suffered a loss of a relationship, whether someone passes away or whether a relationship doesn't work out. That feeling of aloneness, it's really one of the hardest mountains to climb. And so today I wanted to talk about it, and I wanted to start off with a little quote that I found. I posted this on my Quora, one of my Quora spaces, and it really, really spoke to me. So I'm just going to read it to you first, and then we have some friends from Quora that are going to be on with us today. This is what I posted on my Quora site. The feeling of being alone is temporary. The current circumstances exist for you to realize how often you've handed over the control of your life to others. Take back the control of your life. It is meant to be yours. Undoing wrong decisions takes time. You need to be sure of what you want and not just of what you don't want. Connect to your heart center and listen to your soul. Are you sure it's time to close this chapter? Or perhaps things can take a change for the better. Don't throw in the towel because you are tired and exhausted or because it's too much work. I love that because one of the things I look at oftentimes is mental constructs. These are the things that we think about. These are the sort of houses that we dwell in. They're mental constructs. And if you've ever run across a person, it's easier to see in other people than ourselves, isn't it? Sometimes you'll run across a person who is kind of the woe is me person. And that person oftentimes will always give you their terrible sob story. And so, it's easier to realize, that when it's not happening in us, but when it's happening in other people, it's kind of annoying, but a lot of times that happens and we don't see it in our own lives. So we have these mental constructs, things we've created. These are houses that we live in, like no one loves me, or I'm not funny, or I'm not skinny enough, or whatever these things that we create. And then, what I liked about this quote is it says, you need to be sure of what you want and not just what you don't want. Because I think one of the pitfalls in life is we will oftentimes be thinking about all the things that we don't want, and we never think about what we want. And we live in this kind of fearful state, and it's kind of like a magnetizing thing. It kind of attracts what we're thinking of, whether we want it or not. So it's important to always dwell on what we want. And so I have a good treat for you guys today. I'm going to bring in someone who's a Quora writer, just like myself. And she has got over 1 million views on Quora. And I really appreciate all the things she's shared on her in her writings. And Sarah, are you with me?
I am. I apologize. There's a plane in the background.
Let's see here.
I'm here. How are you doing, Chris? Thanks for having me.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry about that. I pushed. I'm doing everything. I'm talking and I'm producing all at once. And
No worries.
I think maybe everyone else heard you, but I couldn't hear you. So
Oh, that's okay. It cut out the plane then.
yeah. So anyways, as you saw in the introduction, one thing that I've been focusing on in my own personal life, and this is what I love about being able to share articles on Quora with people, especially when people are in need or they're writing about relationships, twin flames, or just loss in general, whatever it is I'm always thinking about what can we do, like what can I do myself to shift my perspective, and instead of having that perspective of, the victim perspective, like I was just mentioning a minute ago, of woe is me, I always get the short end of the stick, so on and so forth. But how can, thoughts are really powerful. And so, as I think about this, I think about, wow, what we think about ourselves in a very powerful way sort of, makes us what, we become. And when you and I were talking about getting busy with projects and whatnot, I don't know, my heart leapt for joy when I heard you talking about that, because so many people, when they are in a place of loss, for example, in a relationship situation, they are oftentimes idle, and they're spinning their wheels and they're not involved in anything.
Yeah, that's a really, really great point. I personally, whenever I am upset about something, I actually throw myself into projects. But I think you bring up a great point that, redirecting this energy that you have, in self-pity and feeling, like the world is not in your favor. It's all about the law of attraction. The law of attraction, the energy you give out is the energy you receive.
That's right.
And by redirecting that energy that you're putting towards all those negative feelings, whether, it's grief from, a lost loved one or a lost relationship, or just feeling alone in general because you're stuck inside your house because of coronavirus, redirecting that energy into the things that are your calling or your mission, the things that you find make you the most happy, in service to others. Redirecting that energy to help other people is very fulfilling, and it brings you, closer to the rest of the world. It brings you closer to God, and it really, really helps you realize that separation from everyone else in the world is an illusion.
It really is, and as I'm listening to you, I can hear your birds, your beautiful birds there in the background chirping. So I feel like we're talking to someone from heaven here. So let me ask you this. Let's get into kind of the nitty gritty, because you share what you want, but like, can you give me an example or two of in your life when you felt like you were in a funk? And that may be, like you said, some people get busy, and some people get so busy in a way that, they're running from things. But just kind of talk about for a minute, like when because obviously this was an article that you wrote that I think that had pretty good viewership on Quora. What exactly in your life? Give me a couple examples of what you did to get that forward momentum, and then how that shifted for you, and then what it did for you on the inside.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in my personal life, I have dealt with a lot of things. I've lost a lot of loved ones. I was an orphan at the age of 12, from both my parents. My father abandoned me, and my mother passed away from cancer. And so, growing up, as an orphan, and I grew up in a dysfunctional family as well. Growing up as an orphan, I felt very alone, and I felt very isolated, and like no one really understood me. And as an adult, I have struggled with depression and anxiety throughout my life. I struggled with perinatal depression when I was pregnant and postpartum with my children, and that was a moment when I felt extremely alone.
Yeah.
And I tend to keep myself perpetually busy to try to avoid how I've been feeling, right? But I would throw myself into projects that weren't necessarily my calling. They were just things to keep me busy. So when you redirect that energy towards something that is your calling and is in service to others, it gives you a sense of fulfillment that you can't get from anywhere else.
Yeah.
There's that phrase that says, the greatest happiness is to make others happy.
Yes. Kind of like it's better to give than receive.
Right, exactly. There's so much fulfillment in giving. So being able to, redirect that energy. And so, throughout my struggles with especially perinatal depression, energy to reach out to communities that might be struggling with that and giving them some hope and telling them, yes, if you get help, if you believe, that you can get better, you will get better. There is hope in the darkness. And, using your struggles as, a way to help others is a really, really great way to, fill that void and help you move on and, you know, fill that brokenheartedness.
Yes, I love that. One of the things that I've always felt, and I kind of say this over and over again, is I always felt like whenever we experience something very powerful, like a very powerful love, be it mother, father, relationship, twin flame, whatever, that I always felt like behind that love, it was the divine beloved, so to speak, loving us. And
Absolutely.
yes, and so I remember a time in my life when I was going through a transition time, and those are the hard times. Let's face it, you're going through a transition, and something big has changed. And one thing I noticed was if I kept my eyes open, if I was awake, like to the present moment and just really, just not in the mind so much of thinking of woe is me, past, issues or what about the future and that kind of thing. But if I was really awake at the moment, that I would see that divine beloved smiling at me through so many different things. And I found like, one of the most amazing things about it was that that love is like got an infinite amount of portals into this world, into this earth. It's like I remember one time I was at a Starbucks and I was feeling really down and I was just kind of sitting there. I think I was reading the newspaper or something like that. And someone was leaving and looked up at me and just smiled. And a smile is a smile, but something happened in that moment. And I felt so loved and nurtured. And it was more than just, it was, what I mean? It was more than just that person.
Mm-hmm. Angels are all around us.
That's right. That's right. So tell me a little bit more. You had a couple other topics that you've written on Quora. I should say now the pronunciation of your last name, is it Leist or Leist?
Leist, yes.
Leist. So Sarah Leist on Quora, and you've got over 1 million views, and it just seems like you found your thing. I think one of the things you mentioned earlier was, and we can talk about maybe another one or two of your top writings, but one of the things that you mentioned before is that it's hard to find the perspective of someone who's kind of a runner, but who's kind of surrendered and sort of come back, so to speak. So I don't know if you want to speak to that, because that obviously is really resonating with people. We get a lot of times people writing on Quora or reading on Quora or commenting about, feeling like they, a lot of people that feel like they're abandoned. And so why don't you talk a little bit about, what has resonated with other people?
Absolutely. So just for a little background for those of you who are listening who aren't familiar with my work, I am actually a twin flame runner. So for those of you who don't believe that twin flames actually exist, we do. And I am returning to my chaser. It's been a long process of healing and, changing things around in my life. Like you said, you might be, it takes a long time to change around mistakes that you've made in your life. That's one of them. But so I am a twin flame runner, and I am returning to my chaser. And I'm sorry, what was the question?
So so kind of going back to, obviously with the readership you've had, people have really resonated with your writings, and I think it's because people want to hear about this other perspective, of someone who up and maybe left and then had a change of heart or something like that. So I'm guessing, what I'm getting at is, what do you think it is? What's the essence of why people are identifying with you and your writings?
Oh, thank you. So yeah, as the twin flame runner, one thing is, when I came on, I awakened last year after a dream that I had of my high school sweetheart. And it was like, the 800th dream of him. And I opened up to my friend about it, and she mentioned the term twin flame to me. And that's when I started looking into it. And then the universe conspired to confirm it to me. I got in contact with him. He confirmed it to me that we do have a divine connection. And we've been in contact ever since. So as far as what resonates with people, I think, one of the things that I ran into when I first awakened was I went on Quora and I went on all these blogs, and it's all from the chaser's perspective. There was very, very little about runners, and it's very isolating,
Mm-hmm.
and you feel very alone. You feel very alone as a runner. Come on the Quora scene and everybody's like, oh yeah, you should let go of your twin flame. And here I am like trying to let go of my twin flame. And he's like, where are you going? You just came back. So, having that perspective, there's only a few of us that speak up on Quora. I wouldn't say that there's only a few of us on Quora. I know that there are a lot of runners that are reading posts on Quora. So if you're on Quora and talking about your runners, just be aware of that. The runners are waking up and we're looking on Quora.
That's right.
We're reading your questions and we're reading the way that you talk about us. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
And so, I went on there and I realized that there wasn't a lot of information out there for runners. And it's been a very long process of me waking up, because it comes in stages, the waking up process for the runner. It's different to recognize a deeper connection with this individual versus, being awake to the concept of twin flames or whatever else you want to call it, and then recognizing the divinity of the connection and being healed enough to be in union. It goes through multiple stages to get there. And I think it resonates with people because a lot of people on the chaser side, especially, or the awakened twin, divine feminine, whatever you want to call them, they don't necessarily have the perspective of the runner. They think that the runner just abandoned them because they don't love them, and that's not necessarily the case. It's really, really important to understand that the runner has feelings too. The runner oftentimes runs out of a fear of rejection or abandonment, or you triggered a trauma in them that they haven't dealt with and they didn't know how to react to it.
Right.
Basically, essentially, I'm just going to put this bluntly, the runner often feels like you broke their heart. And the chaser feels the same way, so in an essence, you guys ghost each other because you don't really know what the other is thinking. And so knowing, the runner side of the story, I think has resonated a lot with people because they're suddenly understanding like, oh, this is how my runner feels. And, like maybe I should get in contact with my runner, or maybe I should, have a little bit more compassion for my runner. Or, just understanding, the runner's journey in general.
Right. Sarah,
And I
I
think
think
that really resonates with people.
yeah, no, and I think the thing that, cause there's definitely, there's Quora people who, want to join in and hear and talk about this and so on and so forth. And then there's just a lot of people who maybe they've never, for me, like I never really had read about twin flames, but it's like, there's a lot of people out there who just suffer from loss. And I think, whether it's a twin flame relationship or not, I think one of the deepest, deep cries unto deep in this one area of abandonment. And I think abandonment leads to one of the most, one of the greatest psychological imbalances that can exist. And that's I'm not worthy. And I, so I've been on a quest just in general to discover, what, because, I realized something several years ago when I saw two people going through the identical same situation, but they were both handling the situation completely differently. One person saw it as the end of the world. They saw it as a terrible thing. It affected their life greatly. Their life went downhill very fast. And then I saw this other person, and this other person, it wasn't the easiest situation, but they took it completely different. And so they didn't define it like the other person had. And their life not only was okay, but it actually got better. So what fascinated me about that situation is I felt like, perception really is in a very powerful way is reality. And whether someone out there listening is part of a twin flame relationship where they feel like, they are the I hate to say chaser because a lot of chasers don't chase. You talk about runners,
Right.
and then you talk about people just sit there and cry. Like I would create a new category called the abandoned. And what I like about that though is because there's a lot of people out there that just feel abandoned. And
Right.
I think what you just said will speak volumes to a lot of people on a lot of different levels. And that is that no matter what your situation is in life, whether you have even ever read about twin flames or understand what that's about, or whether you lost your husband or your wife, or your girlfriend or boyfriend, or even you had a death of a loved one that came unexpectedly. The most important thing to know is that that the feeling of separateness, although the feeling itself is real based on a mental construct, the
Hmm.
reality of it is illusion. I remember I have to
Right.
I have to say one more thing here. I remember hearing people who came from more of like an Eastern background saying, "Oh, dude, like that's illusion," and I was like, "That is so new agey and weird." But it's funny. The older I get and the more I get into this, I realize that we make up our mind about stuff,
Hmm.
and we kind of make our own reality.
Hmm.
I mean,
We
it's
do. We do. And there's, basically everything that we know in this world is an illusion. It's what we make it. And separation is an illusion. We are all connected. And especially if you're a twin flame, which, by the way, there are different perceptions on this, but I personally believe from my journey that every single person in this earth has a twin flame. Not everyone is incarnated with their twin flame.
right.
Um,
A
so
lot, a
you
lot of
can,
people don't know, a lot of people don't know much about it, but the one thing I would like could you just throw out one little bone for people who are like, what the heck, twin flames, what's that? Instead of giving a full blown
right.
definition of twin flame, can you talk about what you had a 5D experience, am I right?
Yes.
Okay. And a lot of people are like, what is 5D, dude? Well, we live in the third dimension, we live in a three-dimensional world or whatever, but
Right.
explain what it's like to be in a 5D situation.
So 5D. So 5D comes on different levels, right? So we have 5D experiences in our dreams. That's when you connect with your twin flame and with your loved ones in your dreams. And 5D is essentially, for lack of a better term, um, it's you know the nearest realm of heaven. For those of you who don't understand the dimensions and stuff like that,
It's kind of
it
like
takes
a
a
it's
long time to.
it's kind of like a heaven on earth experience, right?
Yes,
I
yes,
mean,
it's a heaven on earth
it's
experience.
like
Exactly right.
everything, even the mundane. You're walking down the street and you see people, you talk to them, you just feel like everywhere you go, life is kind of like dripping with this like heavenly
Love,
sweet, yes, like
love.
nectar and light and all that. I know it sounds crazy.
Yep.
Some people, and some people out there are going, I don't know. But once you experience something like that, you're like, wow, okay. And
It is
more,
pure.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It's pure happiness is what it is.
Yes.
Yep. So yes, it's heaven on earth. That's essentially what a 5D experience is, and it's recognizing that you are not separate from anything else in the universe, and that includes God. That includes Source. And recognizing if you are a twin flame, which everyone has a twin flame, not everyone is incarnated with their twin flame. You are connected to your twin flame,
Right.
right? Spiritually, you are already connected. You are already in union spiritually, especially if you're incarnated with your twin flame
Yeah.
and you have met them. Then there is already that union.
So
And
maybe that explains a lot of the heartbreak, because it's not just that, hey, I lost this relationship, but it's like you kind of lose your estate. You kind of fall like the
you fall
angels.
back to earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
You fall back to earth. Exactly right. You fall back to earth. And that happens a lot in the twin flame journey. You can be in 5D and then fall back to earth. And, that is what causes the circles that everyone talks about. The runner and chaser phase is basically what happens is the unawakened twin falls back to earth and doesn't know which end is up, essentially. And they get trapped in this mindset of, um, this triggering of all these emotions that are buried under the surface that they don't want to deal with. And that's, they essentially run from themselves. But that's essentially what it is they fall from the clouds.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And so You fell from the clouds.
Many times. I am a very, 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 very fallen fallen twin flame. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what else? Give me one more thing um, before we move on. And I'm going to try and get Terrence on the line here in a little bit. But what? Um,
Love Terrence.
yeah,
Great positive role model.
I know. I know. I want to get him on. Actually, I wanted to pull him on while you were on here, and I was trying to find a way to do that with two of my devices, and I'm like, oh, it's not. It's not cooperating with me. But
no worries, we can do that next time.
yeah, we could do it next time. So let's see what else. Give me one more thing from your articles that you think that really resonates with people. I know you sent me a bunch of links at one point, and I didn't have a chance to go over them all, but I know there's more stuff out there. So
so probably my highest commented on one and liked and visited one is one about whether or not the runner thinks about the chaser, the matrix twin, thinks about the awakened twin while they're in separation. And the answer is I thought about my my awakened twin almost every single day, and we had been separated for 14 years.
mm-hmm.
And there was not a day that went by that I didn't think about him. And I didn't understand why we weren't together. I didn't understand that I was the runner, and it took me about a month after I awakened to the connection to figure out that I was the runner. I thought I didn't really know which end was up on that. But just, a lot of awakened twins, they wonder if their runner ever thinks about them. And the answer is we think about you all the time.
Right.
And we miss you terribly. And we don't know what to do about it because the separation is often caused by a misunderstanding more than anything.
Right.
Either you got in a fight, and something I struggle with personally, and this is because I grew up in an abusive household, is the issue of not being able to reconcile, not knowing how to reconcile after a fight.
Oh yes, yes, that's a big one.
And so my twin and I, we fight all the time. We fight like cats and dogs with rabies sometimes. And it's like a minefield sometimes with us, and we blow up at each other. And then back when we were in high school, like I didn't know how to reconcile. I thought he was forever mad at me, and that we were never going to be together. And then I'd see him, and it was like it never even happened, and it was so weird to me. I didn't know how to react to it. So often separations happen because of a misunderstanding. You get in a big fight, the runner doesn't know how to reconcile, and you both are too stubborn to talk to each other because you don't know how to talk to each other. You think that the other one is mad at each other, or that they rejected you, or that they abandoned you. They don't want to be with you. And I think it's really, really important to understand that you mirror each other. Whatever you're feeling, your twin is feeling.
Yes.
So if you feel abandoned, your twin is feeling abandoned. If you feel rejected, your twin feels rejected.
Right.
And it might be like an opposite scenario, but that is how they're feeling because you mirror each other. And so, take that and run with it as far as, how you react to situations and, empathize with your counterpart.
Yeah. It's interesting because so much of, when you think about just relationships in general, like so much of it is about like learning, to communicate. And I think the biggest, outside of that, the biggest thing that we all learn in relationships as we progress further and further is how to face our childhood issues and I want to say dramas, but really, I want to use a bigger word like, calamities or,
Yeah.
right? Because
Dysfunction.
it seems like, and this is the pattern. So no matter what you believe about like relationships or even twin flame relationships and so on and so forth, no matter what you think, you will always come back to the fact that in any relationship, and particularly in what people call twin flame relationships, people seem to get corralled into facing their childhood traumas. I mean, have you found that to be true?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My twin triggers everything. Everything that ever happened to me, even things I didn't even realize happened to me. So, and you bring it out in each other, and you know each other better than they know themselves, and I think it's important in any relationship to face all of your traumas and heal from all of the things that has happened to you in your life, and knowing that you are never alone. Even when you feel alone, you are never alone. God is right beside you, and that is part of the twin flame journey.
Yes, I love that.
Your twin flame is your divine counterpart, and they are, in Eastern philosophies, they are the symbol of salvation.
Right.
In Western religions, they are the fulfillment of John 14.
Which is, that's the, I know John 14, but I know
it's the promise that Jesus made to his disciples and how he was going to reveal himself.
That he
through
would,
the Spirit of truth.
The Spirit of truth, right.
And I think that's really important, to give you a little story. My twin flame has been there for me in moments of despair, when I was struggling really hard, and he brought me out of it because he was there. The separation is an illusion.
The separation is an illusion. Okay, keep talking. I love that.
The separation is an illusion because even though him and I were not talking, he brought me out of the darkness.
Right.
I was on death's door, and he brought me out of the darkness.
Wow.
He brought me back. And the separation with God is an illusion.
That's it. Yeah, it's just,
so you are never alone.
You're never alone. And that's really what I wanted this podcast to be, because I feel like people are living in torment and they don't need to be living in torment. And
right.
So, yeah. And so it's like, how do we get, how do we get this across to people that they're not alone? Because if someone genuinely feels alone, they sit in the corner and they cry, and they can't see that someone's knocking at the door or the phone's ringing, because they're so enamored in their illusion of separateness. Yes.
Yep. But the truth is, we are never alone.
We are never alone. That is awesome. Well, you know what I'm going to do? Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. I'm going to take and we're going to, Sarah and I were talking about trying to do a more regular thing. So we're going to figure that out. We're going to get back to you on that. But thank you again, Sarah, for taking the time, to kind of call in. And what I'm going to do is take a little break here real quick. And
sounds great.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So yeah, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with you in just a minute. This is Streams of Light Podcast. All right. Back with you here, Streams of Light podcast. And I want to say my good buddy, but I don't know if that would be right to say that. Are you there, Terrence? Let's see here. Hang on a second. Let's see if I got him here. Terrence, are you there with me now? Let's see here. Hang on just a second here. I'll try. Terrence, are you there? Terrence, are you with me? Having a little technical difficulty here. Let's see if I can figure this out. Are you there? Nope. Try one more time. I'm gonna call him back, see if I can get him on the line. Here we go. I got contact now. I got you.
Hello?
I got you, Terrence.
You can hear me?
I can hear you now. Could you hear me, by the way? I'm trying to figure this whole thing out.
Yeah, I can hear you, but I don't think you're able to hear me.
That's okay, but we got you now, and that's the cool thing. Hey, I just I don't know. Did you have a chance to listen to any of the podcast up until you got on here?
No, this is my first time actually. I haven't heard any of the other ones.
That's okay. That's okay. I was just curious because, Sarah, I mean, Sarah seems to know you. You know Sarah a little bit. You guys read each other's writings. You comment on the same boards or the same spaces. And
Yeah.
The reason why I wanted to get you on the line is because I've always appreciated your honesty, your positivity. You're just you're a young guy. How old are you?
I'm 28.
You're 28. How in the
Yeah.
heck did you find your way to Quora? Tell me the story.
Well, I've kind of always been into like the spiritual stuff, and I like to read in my free time, and like just going through life, something would happen, and then I'll just go online and type in whatever I was experiencing, and most of the time Quora came up, and I eventually made an account with Quora, but I never like wrote in or anything. Um, and it was let's say about 10 months ago. That's basically when I first found out about, Twin Flames, and then it was a few months ago I started writing about Twin Flames.
Right. And
Yeah.
so what I liked about, you were talking about, and this is something that, not many people think about, but in the twin flame world, there's what they call DM and DF, divine masculine, divine feminine. And one of the things that happens in society is just the way we think is sometimes if there's a guy in a relationship, you think, oh, he's a divine masculine. If there's a girl, oh, she's a divine feminine. But that's not always the case in twin flame relationships, is it?
Right. It's definitely not always the case.
And so that's one of the things I remember because I had been posting on Quora, and then you kind of came in and you said, "Well, yep, I'm one of those," and I love how you were just you're so positive and you're so honest, and I just love that about your feedback and your posts, and you're starting to grow your space and all your write ups and everything. But
Yeah.
what's your favorite? Because we're talking about separation being an illusion. And Sarah said,
Mhm.
"Oh man, Terrence is going to like that one." Is that true? Do you like that one?
It's one of those things. I love it, but then I hate it at the same time because it's hard to put it into words and like explain it in a way that can be understood. You know. because it's an illusion. It's not real.
But let me
How
ask,
can you
yeah,
explain something? How can you explain something that's not real?
exactly. Well, what was the first thing? Okay, let me ask you this. I want to ask you about when the light first shined on you, and this, like, when did you first realize? Because this is a beautiful thing, just about life in general, when you're learning, to grow and awaken. Because let's face it, twin flame or not, this is a journey where everyone out there is, in essence, part of, the divine. And
Right.
so anyone out there listening, whether twin flame or not, would probably relate to what we're talking about, like separateness is an illusion. But when did the light first shine on you about that? And when was it like you had that aha moment when your jaw just dropped? And do you remember that, or do you remember anything about when that came about?
With twin flames, or just the spiritual journey?
Yeah, well, I mean, anything. I mean, just in the fact of, I mean, I'm more interested right now in separateness as an illusion. Did you have a big aha moment? Was there like one situation where it just dawned on you?
It's been like progressive, really. Like over my life, it's been very progressive. Like started small, and then just accumulate over time. But it started when I was about somewhere between like 3 and 5 years old. I just had like these dreams, like very intense, very hard to explain dreams, and I still remember them, and they like didn't make sense because obviously I'm a little boy, and and but like they were kind of like those first couple puzzle pieces, and then as I went through life, I gathered more pieces. I'm like, wait a minute, this is starting to look like something, and that was my aha moment. And I would say I I really started to take notice when I was in high school. Um, because like I just feeling like I was separate from other people, like I'm different or something about me makes it hard to relate to other people, and right and the other way around too. And I just had all I had was this puzzle, and I'm like, I wonder what this puzzle is. And yeah, so it's been progressive over my life.
Yeah, I mean, that learning experience of, learning that we're not alone. I think in high school, like you mentioned, high school, so many kids, high school, I don't know if you remember, I mean, you're closer to it than me, but one thing I remember is the social circles. And there literally was, in my school at least, I don't know if it's still like this, but there was literally people standing in circles, and you couldn't I don't know about you, but you couldn't get in. Like there was the jocks, and there was the stoners, and there was the, there was all these,
Yeah,
the
I know
prep,
what you mean.
the preppies or the rich boys or whatever. And yeah, so I think in high school in general, or just in school when you're young, a lot of times people feel alienated because even though there's
Right,
all these bodies around, these people around, and then you see them talking and smiling, having fun, it's real easy sometimes to feel, I mean, I think a lot of kids in high school feel like I don't fit in.
right.
And so you had these dreams, and it was like a puzzle, and you started to realize that you weren't alone. I mean, what was the big, like, thing that made you realize I'm not alone? Or was it actually a mystical, was it an experience you had, like a mystical experience, or was it a spiritual experience, or what happened?
Yeah, yeah. More of a spiritual and mystical experience, and it would happen every so often. Not without me trying to, like, just it happened on its own. And when it did happen, like the how I could describe it would be like, I'd be somewhere doing something. Let's say I would be driving, and like this ball of light would would um would like appear in everybody, and then all these lines would start connecting them. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on?
That is rad.
And yeah, and then and
That
then
sounds
like
like something out of the, like, well, I don't want to say the Matrix, but it sounds like something out of a sci-fi film.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And then like it went from like the people being connected to like the cars they were driving, then the animals, and then like that, the small balls of light, everything was just lit up, which is like everything just turned white.
Dude,
And I'm like,
that's amazing.
whoa.
That's amazing. And
Yeah, yeah.
and you weren't like, you weren't partying or anything like that, right?
No, and what's funny, actually, I don't like abuse substances. I don't even use them.
Yeah.
And like I have friends. I meet people all the time, and they're like, do you smoke? Do you drink? Do you do? I'm like, I don't do anything.
Don't even
I
need
don't do
to.
it.
No, thank you.
No. Yeah, and like and I would just tell them like I'm just high off of life.
That is so
I had
awesome. I mean, that experience with the
yeah.
light and the connection, I don't know if you know, but one of the things that science has been trying to figure out is this thing, there's like dark matter, or there's like all this empty space in the universe, and they've been trying to figure it out. And, a long time ago,
Mhm.
Einstein had these theories of quantum entanglement. And I'm just amazed because when you see like everything like balls of light and then there's like lines connecting that, I mean, dude, I mean, the one thing that people like, so I don't do, I mean, when I was a kid, I partied and I did drugs like a lot of people did. But, one of the things that people who do like ceremonies and whatnot, and I lead cacao ceremonies with, which is just, it's just chocolate before it's turned into chocolate. So it's not, there's no psychoactive ingredients. But one thing that people will notice, particularly when they're doing some sort of ceremony for enlightenment, is they will notice that everyone is connected. And I find it
Mm.
amazing that you actually saw, like a lot of people know that in their heart and mind, but they don't always see it. So the fact that you saw that, that's pretty radical. I mean, to see something
Yeah.
like that. I mean, I don't know about, well, when I started having mystical experiences, I thought maybe I was going crazy. Did you ever get that feeling when you started seeing stuff that like, am I going crazy?
No, no, not actually not. I always enjoyed it when it happened. It just happened randomly, and then I noticed like a pattern. It happened every so often, so I'd kind of just just go about life and expect it to happen. And when it did happen, now I just enjoy it while it lasted, and learn from it, and then kept going.
Okay. So your story. So, you share what you want to about your story, but, are you, is it okay if I ask, are you in a separation phase right now?
I don't consider myself to be.
I like that. Tell me why.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. Tell me why.
Well, because um I guess I don't know how to I don't know how to um I guess I just don't identify with separation. I don't even know what it is, to be honest.
Do you feel like, well, because a lot of people out there are heartbroken and someone's not with them physically. Do you feel like
Right.
your metaphysical connection is just so strong that you can't even feel or understand that concept of separation anymore?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
That's pretty powerful. That means, I mean, that's telling me that like you have all that joy and all that contentment and all that bliss and love, like right now.
Yeah, yeah, I do. But it's a double-edged sword really because um the problem that I faced for a couple years, I'm much better at it now, but like you just kind of I mean, even though you don't feel any the separation, or you can't identify it, it's easy to kind of close yourself off from other people in the outside world because it's you have so much bliss and joy inside of you, and it's easy, you can just close your eyes and you're just gone. And so like I had to like not close myself off and kind of let that bliss and that joy flow outside of me.
Right.
You get what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you mean. When you were talking about it, like it's weird because I started having some mystical experiences right around 2007, 8, and I realized that it was so powerful and so real and so full of something I can't even explain, life and joy and bliss and all that, that
Hmm.
I could almost be sustained. I mean, I was in this place and all these things were happening, and I felt like I could just never, not that I would not never want to go out again, but I just felt like I had all this stuff going on, and I was so amazed by it. It was so otherworldly that it's like it didn't really matter to me. A lot of the earthly stuff didn't really matter anymore.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I mean. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So So, and then now when you write on core, let me ask you this. As far as your writings go, what would you say people, what would you say that for the stuff you write, what resonates with people the most, would you say, the most responses you get and the most enthusiasm and gratefulness that people give you for your posts?
Um, just well, everybody sees it differently. I can write something and everybody perceives it in their own way. So the only thing that I do is, I just allow myself to be open, and whatever comes to me, that's where I write. I don't copy from other people or anything like that. Um, and so I just try to keep it original. And when I do write, it's my personal journey. What I'm experiencing, what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, and I believe that resonates with everybody, right? Because you always want to know what somebody's feeling, what they're thinking, what's going on in their life. And I I'm not concerned about, like how many followers or views or whatever. I just whatever comes to me, I just put it out. And I consider it to be food. I put it on the table. Whoever wants to eat, they eat. If they don't want to eat, that's fine either. That's fine as well.
Love that. Um,
Hmm.
so how you feeling about core? I mean, you've been, how long you been writing on it for now?
It's been a couple months.
But you're coming up fast,
I
man.
I
I
did
see you're trending out there. I see your posts and stuff.
Yeah, I don't remember the specific date, but um this 10 months ago, and then it had to have been maybe like somewhere around 6 or 7 months ago. Because when I first found out, um, knew for sure that I was a twin flame. That's when I really became active on core as far as reading, and then it was a few short months afterward. Um, that's when I started writing.
That's awesome, man. I love it. Well,
Yeah,
I love your positivity and I just love how you chime in. Every time I put a little post out there or whatever, you and all the rest of I feel like it's a family. It's like a core of family of support.
yeah,
And
definitely.
I really, is there anything else you want to share with people before we take off here? Is there something that is closest to your heart or any messages you have for, anyone?
Yeah. So like the best way that I could describe the illusion of separation is kind of like a mirage. You're driving down the road, or better yet, let's say like you're in the desert, it's hot, you're thirsty, you want some water. You've drunken, all your water is gone. And it's 120 degrees outside, and you look ahead, you're like, whoa, there's some water over there, let's go. And you go over there, and you look around, you're like, where's the water? It was just here. And you're like, oh my God, this is crazy. And you look ahead and you see some more water. You're like, hey, there's some water over there. Let's go. And you get there, there's no water. You're like, oh my gosh, I must be going crazy, right? Because it's an illusion.
It's an illusion.
It's exactly, it's not real.
It's like
But
they call that a mirage, like
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It,
and
I
so
was gonna say, when it happens in the movies the most, the mirage part is when someoe's been walking all day and they haven't had water and they start seeing things. And I feel like that's what happens. Like that, like, isn't that kind of like life though? Like you go through life, someone dies or you have a loss of relationship or whatever.
yeah,
And it's like
yeah,
you're tired and thirsty. And now you're seeing stuff that's not even there.
yeah, exactly. And it becomes a distraction because um the more you think about it, like, oh, I'm thirsty, I need some water. Then you start feeding your thirst even more, and before you know it, you're further off the path than you were, and so like um focusing on the illusion is what keeps you in separation.
Right.
Even just believing it, like, oh, I can just go out and do this, it don't matter. Like, no, there are consequences to your choice, right?
I love this. This is,
Because
yes. Keep
because
going.
you know that energy you send out, it always comes back to you. It doesn't matter where you are, who you're around. It always comes back to you because there really is no separation.
There
There
really
really isn't.
isn't. This dude, this is why I called you. This is why I called you, Terrence. This was the
Yeah,
cream off the top. Thank you so much, man, for taking the time just to hang out and
you're
chat with
welcome.
the core team. I appreciate it so much, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
You
Wow. That's awesome. So Streams of Light podcast, Chris Anthony. We're going big time. We're definitely going big time on podcast today. We had 2 callers so far, Quora friends, and we're going to do one more. I've got a special person here waiting on the line, and we're just going to bring her in and get her 2 cents. Her name's Yolanda. She used to go by Londa, and then she changed it to Yolanda. So, anyways, let's just see if she's Yolanda. Are you with us?
Hello, yes, I am.
Oh my gosh! And you're in Australia.
Yes, I am. Yes.
I love that.
Hello.
Well, good day.
G'day. How's it going?
I love that because I have a special place in my heart for Australia because I work for Rip Curl, and a lot of people in the United States don't realize, how big Rip Curl is in Australia. And I remember before I went on my first trip there, I remember my coworkers saying, you're not going to believe how big Rip Curl is down there. And, we have Quicksilver here, Rip Curl's here. But
Oh, wow.
when I went down there and
Yep.
I saw everyone just roaming the streets with Rip Curl jeans on and shirts, I was like, wow. And then going to Torquay and hanging out with the whole Rip Curl crew, it was quite, it was quite the experience. And I stayed there for 3 weeks and I got to surf the famous Bells Beach. So I kind of got inducted into Australian life. The only thing that didn't happen is I didn't see AC/DC while I was there. So I guess, I
Damn.
didn't quite didn't quite get the whole shebang, but
Oh,
so
well, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Having me to chat on your show. So I'm actually from Adelaide. So that's South Australia. So that's down south of Australia. So what you were describing there sounds very, very Queensland and the coast of New South Wales to Sydney.
right.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. So
that's okay.
so,
That's all
so
right.
you're kind
No
of
problem.
are you kind of out in the sticks a little bit more remote then?
No. So I'm down south in South Australia in a town called Adelaide. So we're a lot more quieter than like Sydney and
In Melbourne.
Sydney and Melbourne. We're a lot
Yeah.
quieter than that. But yes, we're a little city. We're like I guess you could say we're like a little country town, a very very big country town. Yeah, yeah. But it's beautiful down here. It's a lot more quieter, and we're just going into our winter. So, yeah, not so much surfing and things like that at the moment. But yeah,
So, I figured you were kind of in a small town because you seem to me like you're the intuitive type, right?
yes, yeah. Thank you. That's interesting that you picked that up. Yeah. So I do. I've actually just gotten more into doing public oracle readings. But yeah, so I've always been a bit intuitive. So I go on. I make decisions and I can read situations and people and connect with others. Intuitively. So I guess you could say I'm an intuitive. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you think about like someone who's connected, usually the intuitives that are helping people with direction in life and really have something to offer that like kind of shines the light on people when they're maybe groping around and trying to find more
Sure.
light. It seems like, I mean, I don't know if it's a stereotype, but you just picture, this person kind of lives out in the woods and it's kind of like, I think of like the New Zealand country where the Hobbit, where the Hobbit lives or something like that, green
Yeah,
fields and
where
trees
the
and
hobbits live.
maybe some things that break the rules like wizards walking down the street or some strange animals or something.
That's so. Oh, that sounds so fun.
Doesn't it
It's
sound
funny
fun?
that you get that. Yeah,
That's a
it's
vibe.
funny
That's a
how you
vibe I
get
get
that
from.
vibe.
That's a vibe I get from you, though.
That's very interesting because I'm very I practice. I guess you could say I don't want to say witchcraft because there's a lot of negative connotations about that, but I do practice a lot of, I guess I'd call it earth magic. So,
Hmm.
yes, I'm very connected to nature. And, when I feel sick or if I feel like I've got a lot of blockages, I take myself out for a walk and I take my shoes off. And I guess, I feel like a bit of I suppose, not a wizard, but, just this mythical being that lives in the
Yeah.
woods. And that's kind of like my fantasy in my head to just go and live in a hut that I've built in the woods. That's
Oh my
definitely very
gosh.
me.
I might be intuitive because didn't I kind of
Yeah,
call it right there? I mean, that's kind of crazy, that I
it's
called that.
very funny that you get that vibe.
Yeah, I get that
Yeah,
vibe. And I think of, and the word that popped into my mind was alchemist, in the sense of, I think, and it's funny because I know why you hesitate to say like witchcraft, for example, because of the connotations. But even when I think of yoga, I
yeah,
think of, that yoga is it's like the modification of the mind stuff. And the mind is so powerful. And a lot of people don't realize that thoughts are energy, and that the
hmm,
universe is, best we can tell, is most likely just an expression of mind or consciousness, and it's a physical universe.
for
So,
sure.
I think, people are, we're kind of coming out of this dark age where people are like, witchcraft and all that. And they're realizing like, no, this is actually science. And to some degree or another that supports it. Although the esoteric practices of like, the alchemist or, someone such as yourself may not be so readily available for everyone in the beginning. But, anyways, nevertheless, there you are. I mean, and it's a beautiful thing, right?
It really is, and I think a lot of the ideas about witchcraft and even wizardry as well, because I mean we have male witches and not necessarily binary either. A lot of different genders now and a lot of different humans on the planet are practicing this sort of thing. And I think uh, just from my own experience, yeah, witchcraft is very much being embraced and it's being realized as a very natural form of getting in touch with the emotions. That's basically how I see it. Getting in touch with the emotions through the natural world and using earth magic. That's how I see
Hmm.
witchcraft now. And people are realizing it's not this dark. Sure, there are definitely dark shadow aspects to witchcraft that people like to delve into, and that's for them. That's them delving into their dark side and the darkness, and there always needs to be that. I think there needs to be people who are willing to go into the darker realms to dig things up for others that scare us, because then that's when change happens. Anyway, I could talk for a
Oh, you
long
could
time
talk.
about
Oh,
that, but
yeah.
yeah, I'm sure that's not what you want to talk about
Well,
today.
you know what? I thought about it, and I already had two people from the Quora site who were talking a lot about twins, but I thought, this is really cool because, um, actually, I wouldn't mind going this direction because I'm completely fascinated with, the path you're on, and, the power that there is in nature and getting back to nature. And then, one of the things that always
Sure.
fascinated me was, the Celts or the Celts, depending on how you pronounce it. But in the Celtic forests, you had,
Yes.
they felt they were so in touch with nature, and they felt like the divine was in everything, sort of speaking, living, and offering everything that needed, to be received. And I just love that, that whole concept. And I think in our day of like urban sprawl, I just feel like we've kind of lost, that element.
Most certainly, yeah. There's a lot of technology that distracts us from a lot of the natural world and I think technology is a blessing. I mean, like YouTube here, like WhatsApp, because we're talking through WhatsApp. But I think a lot of this technology is such a blessing, but it also too much of something, too much of this social media technology takes us away from the natural connection, because we're through this social media we're still connecting, but too much of it means that we have a disconnect from nature, from trees, from the ground, from the dirt, all of that. But when you were talking about the Celtic cultures and Ireland, that just sprung a bit of a story for me that relates very directly to the twin flame journey for me,
Hmm.
which I can go on about if you'd like.
Yes, please, please.
Sure. So in 2018, early 2018, I should say it started in 2017 for me, so we're in 2021 now. But 2017, I began to get these visitations from I started meditating and I started practicing some astral travel work for myself. And I started to get these visitations from a being, and it would come into my room, and it was a very nice, loving being. It was a masculine being, and it was like a bright blue light that was in the shape of a person, but it wasn't human. And this being would often be with me in the evening at night time when I was trying to sleep and after a very deep meditation. So that was in 2017. Going into 2018, so I have an Irish background. My mother and my mum's side of the family are all Irish.
Mm.
So so I had this calling in 2018 to go on a trip and take myself to Ireland. So I did that. And during this trip, I had a lot of big changes come into play. And basically, from having that since having that visitation from this being that would be in my presence a lot after some meditations in 2017, when I went to Ireland, I had this very big, like I was spending a lot of time in nature. I would often climb the cliffs. I went to the northern part of Ireland near the Giant's Causeway and the Bushmills, and I used to walk a lot through the forests there. And I took my shoes off. I'd walk along the cliff tops and for hours on end, just doing that. And I'd leave my phone off. And yeah, I felt so at peace, and I felt purely who I was. And when I was on this trip, and especially on the plane, like going to Ireland and heading back home to Australia, I had this very strong feeling in me that, Yolanda, you need to change now. You need to stop pretending, or stop trying to live the life that makes others happy, because you need to start preparing yourself for someone who is coming to to sort of uplift you and make you a better person. I just had this very uh, inner push to start spending more time in the natural world, going for more nature walks and hikes with friends, and spreading the word to my friends, and pushing people around me, going, hey, let's go on a hike, and hey, let's go for a swim, and hey, let's go by that waterfall and just jump in and go for a swim. Who cares? So I came back to Ireland with this fresh perspective of not being afraid of nature and taking more risks in nature, just seeing a beautiful spot of water and just jumping in and going for a swim, just things like that. And I have never, I'd always dreamt of doing things, magical things in nature like that. It must sound boring. Like, you're a
No.
surfer, so this must.
No, are you kidding me? No, this, I
You're
mean,
just like surfing these waves, and
oh, that's
here I
right.
am
You're
talking about
thinking of
putting my feet
Australian
in a pond.
Oh, yeah, you're thinking of Australian surfers, though. No, I think I'm one of those surfers who, I mean, surfing is just one thing I do. So nature, it's hard for me in surf, to be honest with you, because it's so competitive and it's so crowded out there. And I'm always like, I even bought a little dinghy boat last year just so I could go, out in a point, find a point where there's just me and a couple friends.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I don't. A pond is great. I do guided meditations where I walk people through these meditations where they jump in this like still crystal, ponds. And so, no, you're talking to a guy who, I get this. I mean, this is cool. Keep going. Keep
That's
going.
beautiful. Okay, all right. Oh, that's wonderful to know that. Okay, but yeah, so just this is more just friends, just friends of mine, and also family. Like, I go for walks with my mother and just going, hey, let's do this. Take your shoes off and let's get our feet a bit dirty in the sand and get a bit wet in the ocean and stuff. But so anyway, yeah, during this trip and on the way back, I had this very strong feeling that I need to do more of that sort of thing, because I'm going to be meeting someone. I just had this inner feeling, and like, I also remember being very dissatisfied with other relationships for a while, not because it wasn't an attraction thing, or I just felt like I needed a bigger challenge, and I needed to be an even I needed to work on myself more, and I needed someone who was going to push me to look at myself and to propel me a bit more. And I had that feeling in 2017,
You
and I
knew they were
started
coming.
preparing.
You knew they were coming, didn't you?
I knew, and I knew they were on my way, and I needed to get ready. That's the clear message I got: get ready, Yolandi, because they are coming.
Right.
So So fast forward to the end of 2020, last year. Um, I of course I support the whole tiny house movement and the living and building a home, in the natural world in a very big space of land, away from the city. So I'm part of a group on Facebook that discusses those things and
I love
discusses how to
that.
build these homes. So I was just chatting, and I woke up one morning and I just felt frustrated, and I said, look, what do people do who feel frustrated about freedom and who are looking for a cheap, block of land? Have you done it? Where can I find freedom? I just posted something like that out of a bit of humor and to sort of trigger a few people to get them to think and to share, because I also wanted to know for myself. And I got like it just became a hit that day. Like hundreds of people responded, and this one man responded, of course. And I had this I didn't think too much of it at the time, but yeah, I had this response from this one gentleman, and it was pretty straight and nothing. It was just helpful. And he's like, "Hey, if you just search, on the local real estate, Australian real estate, you should be able to find something, within the 50 grand price range." He said, "Good luck. I'll send you some info." And
And this is
he
for a
just
tiny
he was
house.
just really
Are you talking about a tiny house he was talking about?
yeah, just a house to build a tiny house on.
Okay.
But he was just very, unconditionally helpful and just kind. And I thought, well, that's very nice. And he private messaged me some information. He says, look, I hope that helps. And yeah, all the best. And he sent me a big smiley face. And after the smiley face, there was the silence. I just said, oh, thank you. And then after that, he accidentally, I think he slipped, like his, I don't know, something slipped when he was typing the message. And he accidentally sent this huge love heart.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. But did he do that on
and then
purpose
I
though?
saw that and I thought, okay, I think this is him.
So do you think so was that an accident
It
that it was like meant to
was
be?
an
Oh
accident.
my
And then
gosh. He's
immediately
like,
after,
no. And then he was like,
it's very sweet. And then immediately after, he laughed and he said, sorry about that. And I thought it was really sweet and I laughed too. I was like, yeah, that's okay, no worries. So fast forward, we did meet and it was lovely. And the first time we met, there's this thing that happens with the eyes that I've never had before, and I knew the first time we met. Like, we went for a walk in a park. We just had like a drink at a cafe. Went for a walk in the park. We sat somewhere on the top of like a bike hill. It's really funny because he's very connected to the earth as well. So we're like, should we just sit here? And he's like, yeah, let's just sit here. So we just sat. We climbed this dirt hill, and then we just sat on the dirt at the top of this hill, and we're talking, just chatting about stuff, about tiny houses, I think. And he just looked at me he turned to me and he kind of had this big smirk on his face that I've never seen a man do. And he looked at me for intensely for quite too long. And I looked at him too. And I knew right then, I thought, okay, something's up here. Yeah. So long story short, yeah. So I did meet my twin in person, and we are in separation, but I can feel it. We're going to be in union very soon, and it's partly because of me. Like, it's going to be me that, yeah, I've got a tiny bit more healing to do, and I'm very aware of it.
Hmm.
And then I believe that it's very close anyway. Yeah,
Wow.
union coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I see you, out there on Quora, and I see you very, you're active and you're responding to posts. I always try and post positive things in general. And
Yes.
and for me, I actually have more readers in, more in the meditation world than I do in the twin flame world, but my heart is always drawn to the twin flame forums because I really want to help people understand some of the mysteries of life. Like I like how Yogananda used to call God the cosmic beloved. And it doesn't really matter to me what you call it. You could call it energy or a force, but I always love that, the cosmic beloved, because I felt like,
The cosmic beloved.
oh,
Okay.
it's
Yep.
it's so beautiful. You've probably heard some of the poems by Rumi, and Rumi, of course, would write about the beloved.
This is very, very interesting. Yes, Rumi is cropping up a lot lately.
For you?
Yes, I haven't read a lot of his work,
So you
but I do.
should.
I know.
You
Yes,
should.
I should,
And
because
you should.
his quotes keep cracked me up.
Oh,
And
yes.
the fact you mentioned it now means I need to read
You need
deeper
to,
about him and his
and
work.
I'm going to give you one more assignment too. So in addition to Rumi, I want you to check out another gentleman from that part of the world, and his name
Okay.
is Hafiz, or sometimes people pronounce it Hafiz. It's Hafiz, and so Hafiz was very similar to Rumi, and I actually like him, even though Rumi's got a little more popularity. As a matter of fact, at one point in time, not too long ago, I read that Rumi was the most popular poet in the United States, and it just goes to show you how much the West is embracing, mystical spirituality, because Rumi was a
Yes.
Sufi mystic, and if you look at the roots of Sufi mysticism, it's Islam. And so every major religion out there has what I would call the mystical branches. Those are the beautiful boughs and the treetops where the flower blooms and the fresh green shoot comes out. And so Rumi is a Sufi mystic, and Hafiz would be another good one for you to read. I do like him quite a bit more, actually. Not, I shouldn't say more, but sometimes some people resonate with you more than the other. But it's a beautiful thing, because poetry is, it's fascinating because it's words, but somehow the poet has the uncanny gift of being able to take you out of the discursive mind and take you into the heart. And that's what I think is so beautiful about poetry. And that's why I think Rumi resonates with so many people, because it's almost like a spark that starts a mystical fire in people's hearts. And so I just love these kind of poets, because they open up our world, and they actually, and this is the other thing, and you can chime in on this if you feel like, that you're in your own personal life, as far as what you do in your readings and whatnot. I feel like wherever we go in our own spiritual experience, wherever we go, we're able to bring that atmosphere, or that current, or that breath of fresh air to other people. And that is one of the greatest gifts that we have here on earth, is to not only, to grow and have some sort of forward momentum or motion, or go higher, or whatever you want to call it. I hate to use these dualistic terms, but to then infuse that into others. And isn't that kind of what life's all about?
Oh, that's the beautiful thing about all of this sort of work. I agree with you there. I think that even now, the more we get into this, there's so many more people connecting with this, and sometimes it's just it could be one tarot reading, and I never see the person again, and that was enough to spark that awakening for them, or even could be one sentence that I said to them, or one card that I flipped and they saw the picture and they're like, I got it. I'm going to investigate this further. And that can be almost their portal, or
Right. To another world.
that's exactly, to this whole spiritual realm of, I love this spiritual realm because it's very authentic and honest.
Yes.
You have to take your mask off when you step into this world a little bit.
Oh man, really? Do I have to do that?
Do I have to do that? Oh, please. It's not an easy thing to do.
It's
it's not always. Off.
Let me ask you this: do you find yourself almost in your spiritual profession, almost like a mommy who's chasing the kids around trying to pull their masks off to like help them see light? Because I mean, don't you feel like that? Like I once I was part of this contemplative meditation group once, and the guy who led it, a very great man, a spiritual leader, and I remember he didn't make many statements, but he asked a lot of questions. And I know he actually did, therapy for a living. So sometimes he would ask people a question. You could see how good he was at this, because he didn't want to just blaze the light in their eyes and hurt their retinas, right? So he would oftentimes ask a question like, do you feel like when this happens, that, this is true or whatever? And he would kind of gently grab their hands and walk them towards a light of self-discovery, really. And, but I would think in your line of work and in your passion and what you're doing with readings and whatnot, that you're trying to, you probably see the masks and you're turning cards and you're like, of course that just came up, oh, I hope they get this or whatever. I would imagine that's part of what you do in your line of work.
Yes, so for sure. I mean, when I say, it's hard to wear your mask in this kind of work, that's not to say that sometimes I don't put mine on. Like, for sure, sometimes you got to set boundaries and like, like one example, sometimes people will contact me because I've actually I've only just started doing these readings publicly, but um, so I do I'm going to start doing public readings on Sunday completely free, one-on-one in person. And of course, I've got people messaging me, asking me to, oh, would you come out to my house as well? And I'm like, I can certainly do that, but that's a private reading. And of course, for me to come and travel, and they live on the other side of like the state, and they're like, oh, would you come to my place? I'm like, I could certainly look at that, but that's a long drive, and so I would charge a small fee to come
Oh,
out to you, and they're like, oh, okay, no worries. So
I
and
think you
then
should
they'll
charge a
send
large fee for that, to be honest with
do,
you.
do you know what I mean? And then they'll
Yeah.
say, oh, I can't get to your free thing on Sundays because I've got a broken such and such, and I've got this. So there's, it's a little bit hard to tell whether there is some guilt tripping there or there's a bit of codependency that needs to be healed there. But
Hmm.
basically, yeah. So so when the mask comes into play, so sometimes that can be a bit of a boundary setting. Um, you don't. I don't always like to let people in if they're going to, I suppose, uh, yeah, ask me to do something that's going to make me not love myself, or that's not going to make me feel good. So the things like that. So I suppose with the mask, I never try to push. Anyone that comes to me and they want a reading, I never try and push people to take the mask off.
Right.
Because we all want to look after ourselves.
Right.
Um,
Right.
Yes, and even just talking about my own mask and things like that, like I have a terrible habit of sometimes I'm way too honest. Sometimes I'm honest to a fault and I overshare a little bit, and that's
Really.
just yeah. Have you noticed?
No, actually, I don't.
So,
You know what? I think of you as like, if we go back to, I think of you as like a little bit of maybe a mama bear in that sense. That's the role. Like you there's a lot of love there, but maybe a little bit of, what we call tough love, maybe, just a little bit. But I don't think you're too hard. You seem like a really good soul with the best intent for other people to me.
well, thank you. And I get that. I do get that vibe from a lot of because I've read a lot of your, the channeling, because, yeah, I love some of the channelings you get. They just seem very enlightened and very in tune with a lot of that unconditional love. And, let's create an open space here. And I do find a lot of helpful advice coming from a lot of your channelings. I find that very interesting. How do you get those, and what method do you use to tap into that? I suppose, or is that a big secret?
No, it's fun. It's so funny. This is kind of like the Rumi comment.
Right.
For you, this is okay. So yesterday I went to, I did, yoga in my favorite town and beachside, grassy spot and the whole thing. And afterwards I went and checked in with a friend of mine who's an intuitive, and it was just beautiful. We met in this little hallway and she brought her cards. And one of the things that she asked me, she's turning over card, and I just think it's amazing. I recorded it all, but the one thing I didn't do, and you probably might want to even recommend to people who feel really touched that they do this in your sessions. I wish I would have taken a picture of the spread because,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yes.
because there was sometimes the artwork on the cards will
Mm-hmm.
speak to I don't know, the client, for lack of a better term. And I was just mesmerized by the energy I was getting from the artwork. And then of course, when she was talking, it was all dovetailing together. But when you ask me, what do I do? One of the things, like to get, like, what's my process? I'm
Yes.
I'm kind of a California surfer, so I'm very loose, in my modalities of things, but I'm very regimented on eating and exercising, but I'm pretty loose on everything else. And she said to me, you need to, and she kind of started talking to me about what you're talking about, but getting a little
Mm-hmm.
more intentional on how you go about this. And so I can't really, it's funny. It's almost like the little kid who, sees dead people or something on the movie with Bruce Willis or whatever.
Yep.
You ask a little kid like, so how does this work? Do you meditate and then, or do you take some, some plant food, or what do you do? Plant medicine? And they're just like, I don't know. I just see them. And that's kind of how I feel, because I don't know how to tell you that. I mean, it just, comes, it definitely comes from within. Like sometimes I'll be reading a post and I can see patterns. So for example, here's what happens for me. I read a post or a question, and what usually happens is something will resonate with me on what the person said, and I identify with it within my own being, right? So, and then usually I'm brought back to a time where I remember what it was like to be in the place they're in. And then it's almost like something else rises up within me. And it's almost like, even if I didn't have energy or any willpower or any want to do anything at the time, it's almost like that Kundalini rising, where it just straightens out your spine and the whole thing. I just like sit up, I open up my phone or my iPad, and out it comes. And it's just like a torrent. And so many times the things that come they're part of my experience, but the way the words come and the way it all comes together, it's not, you're right. It's funny you asking me this, because I haven't really thought of it on the terms like you're proposing here. So, but it's definitely otherworldly. And thank you for the kind words. I wish I could give you a specific answer of what I do.
That's okay. No, it makes a lot of sense how those things seem to come to you. It doesn't have to be. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like a very organized. I do this, and then therefore that happens. Doesn't matter. It's just beautiful that you get those insights. That's a very special thing, and I can tell that you help a lot of people. It doesn't matter how you get those insights. It's the fact that you're getting them says more than the process. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, we're all on this journey, and I don't know about you, but I think you and I both live long enough to know when you come out, go through the desert or the valley, what it's like, and why not, bring someone a glass of water, or bring them a pair of binoculars so they can see what's ahead, or actually just bring them reality, which that's my passion on Quora is, and I don't know if, you wanted to talk about this at all, but it's been the theme of our discussion today, is that the illusion of separateness. And
yes, I was listening for the first part this morning. Yes, because I'm juggling work and traveling a little bit. I do social support work during the week as well. So yes, but I did catch the first half of your live here on YouTube. So
with Sarah,
but the idea of being separate is an illusion. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, that's what we've been talking about, and I appreciate all the viewpoints, because I feel like everyone's looking at the same. Truth is like a diamond, and it's so multifaceted. So if you have a group of people stand around the gem, and then everyone takes a look, and then you go around and interview them about it, it's all going to have a slightly different take on it. And so I want to know, what's your take on this gem of a truth, or is it not?
Of course. Well, I suppose in the earth realm here, in like the 3D, I would say that, separated, when someone's saying that they feel separate from their twin, I understand that. And it hurts a little bit, because it feels like in the earth realm, it feels like you're being separate from yourself, separate from that unconditional love. But the fact that separateness being an illusion, I think it really is, because the fact that even in the 3D, if you feel personal experience, when I felt separate, the fact that I'm missing and the person that I love is not sitting next to me, or messaging me or whatever, the fact that I'm thinking of them and I'm getting these nice I guess nice thoughts, or I got a feeling, or there's some synchronicities, because I still pay attention to synchronicities. I guess if you're in separation, all I can say is, in the twin flame journey, when you're in separation, there are always synchronicities. So those are almost like 3D signs that you are being thought of, and almost like you're being thought of by your twin.
Mm.
And it's almost like I've personally found that as reinforcement. Like, so yeah, if I'm having, perhaps like a day where, a hard day at work, or I'm just feeling upset or stressed, or you just low in energy or something, and perhaps my vibration gets a bit lower. If I start going, okay, can you just show me? I'll just, maybe talk in my head and go, okay, can you just show me some synchronicities? So that might be, a set of numbers on the clock, which tends to be a very prominent thing in the twin flame journey. We'll see, 1111.
Oh yeah.
That's usually a sign. Yeah, yeah, you would know all about that, Chris.
Yeah,
That
yeah. I'm seeing a lot of
yeah,
20. Maybe you can tell me. I'm seeing a lot of 20s and 40s lately. Do you know what the heck that? I'm trying to figure out what that
I
means.
yeah, it's interesting. I've been seeing a lot of 1111.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, not at the moment, but 1122 and 1144. For me, that's a lot. So that's very, very recurring, and usually every day. Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. So yeah, so in the 3D, I'd say for people that feel separate, um, ask for synchronicities, and you can ask for whatever ones that you like. For me, it's usually the time, or yeah, numbers like that. Numbers on a letterbox, numbers of street numbers, anything like that. So I ask for synchronicities, and that's almost like the physical earth realm reminding you that, hey, you're not actually separate. You're still connected. So, but because you're thinking in earth, physical, tangible terms, and you're still dipping a toe into that logic,
Mm.
because twin flame journey ain't about logic.
No.
It's about feeling and intuition. So if you're still, getting a bit tempted by the logical, physical world, then you can just go, hey, just show me some synchronicities to remind me that we're still connected and my twin is still thinking of me.
Mm.
And usually when you see the synchronicity, they are thinking of you right then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. I just love, I also love sharing with people. I don't talk too much about the numbers and whatnot, but what I love sharing with people
Sure.
is because I don't, it's not that I'm against the numbers, but I just, like I said, I mean, I'm seeing 20s and 40s. Maybe you can tell me what that means. I don't always know what it means. I mean, when I see like, 123 or 234 on the clock, I always feel like,
Yeah.
okay, everything's got an order, everything's progressing. I mean, that's a natural thing for me to think that. But what I always go back to and what I always like to share with people is I like to share with them that, that the feeling of separateness is, though you're missing a person, their body's not there, you're not with them, you're not enjoying their presence, that though that may be true, that there is a very, very real connection, not only to that person, but to all of life, to divine, if you believe in that. And I really, and I really long to see, because I've found it, that I found that peace in solitude and, that self-sufficiency. And I think, I don't think I really got it until I went deep into meditation. When you go really, really deep inside yourself,
Yes. Yep.
you find this divine light that is just, I mean, you can see why some of these ascetics and mystics went out to the desert or the Himalayas, go to the caves, because it's like when you do finally get a glimpse of what's deep, deep down inside of you, you start to understand why all these religious leaders throughout the ages have talked about it. Christ said the kingdom of God is within, or he said that there's a
Yes.
stream that'll bubble up from deep within your being or your belly, he said. And then there's all these other, great leaders will talk about this beauty and this divine image that's within. And I can see why some of these guys went to the deserts or the caves and they're like, hey, now that I'm here and now that we found out what we got going on in here, why go anywhere? But of course, the flip side to that, and what I've learned is it's not only, it's so important to find the light within, but it's just important to go without and to share that light with others. And a lot of times you can't share it in a very cognitive reasoning sort of way, but the best way to share it, it's a frequency. It's you know what I mean? It's an atmosphere you bring people, and you
Yes.
can share the words, but you can share the feeling and the light in other ways. And I would think that, for someone such as yourself, that when people come for a reading and they sit down, it's like you've become something to them, somewhat of a priestess in a sense, that you're bringing, you're bringing some sort of life to them, some sort of hope, some sort of sustenance that is very tangible to them.
I well, I agree in a sense. It's almost like you're turning on a light, because we've all got it. That's the thing. Like everyone who reads, or I can only speak from myself, but I'm not really doing anything special. I'm doing something that anyone can do, and everyone has that ability to turn their light on and to to shine it on others and to go, hey, you've got one too, but you're not looking after yourself today. So
Yeah.
here's how I turn mine on. I go for a walk in nature, I eat well and things like that. And yeah. So, yeah, I definitely, I think we've all got that ability.
Yeah, we
I've
do.
seen that anyway. And like, if I can see someone struggling, and even if I'm having, it is very hard sometimes if I'm having like a stressful day and I'm really tired because, yeah, if I haven't, like for me, if I haven't slept well, then my light dims for sure. If I, some people can live off, and survive on 5, 6 hours sleep. Yeah, that's not me.
Not you.
So
Yeah.
if I get 6 hours sleep, my light is going to be dimmed. I can do lots of meditation in that day and it will certainly lift it up a bit more, but it's not enough for me. So for my self-care, I've got to get 8 to 9 and then I am bright. I am like a headlight. So that's it. Yeah.
It's
So,
beautiful.
yeah. So I think a lot of these things come down to, uh, good self-care, good self-love.
I love that. What now, getting ready to close out here, what would you, okay, so do you have, do you have a space on Core at this time, or your own space, or you
So
just,
a space, I don't know.
that's okay if you don't. I
I
just wanted to give you a chance if you had one. I thought, well, you could plug it. I mean, but if
I
you,
have actually. That's okay. That is a very interesting point. I might perhaps look at that, but I'm just Yolandi on Quora, and I just answer questions that pop up that I feel I can help with. But I have started uh a readings by Yolandi page on Facebook that people can look at if they would like.
mm.
So that is
So how could they
mainly
find
I'm
that? They
doing
would
a lot of.
just, what's it called? So it's called Readings by Yolandi?
Now I think it's called Oracle by Yolandi. It's only in the past couple of weeks
Okay.
that I've started this up. But for now, it's very locally based
Yeah.
here in Adelaide, South Australia. But I mean, I'm very open. If there are people elsewhere in the world who would like to chat with like a reading, I'll definitely be looking at that in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Oracle by Yolandi.
I love the fact, it's so cool when I connected with you. I just got this little buzz of like, here we are, and you're all the way over on the other side of the earth, and we're on this conversation. It's actually kind of crazy to think that, if I were to say this 20 years ago, if you were to say, not only are we on a call, but it's free. Okay. It's across a data network. And then our conversation is going everywhere. It's going to India and to China and to Russia and to Alaska. And I mean, it's crazy to think that this is happening. And when you said, and I agree with you on the technology thing. I mean, it's like too much of that kind of thing can cause, it causes neck problems and all that, but I mean, it causes problems with the nervous system. But I think of it like the old Star Wars, when Luke and the gang, they went in and they shot the shot into the Death Star, and they used technology to kill technology. And I kind of think this is a little bit what we're doing here, because we're using this to get out there and to help people. I love the theme of connecting to nature. When I saw you, it's so funny. You said you walked around Ireland. I've got roots in Ireland, and family from Ireland and Wales, and I've always wanted to go and explore all these places, in the Celtic forests and things like that. So when I saw you, I thought, man, she's like walking in Celtic land. It's so funny that you shared that, because that's how I see you. That's how I see you. And that's a beautiful thing.
That is very interesting. That's very, yeah. Thank you so much, and look, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, on your podcast, I really appreciate that, Chris. And it's an absolute pleasure connecting with another soul like you, who's you're out in the world and you're open to you're open to the light and to having to having some insight Some very
Yeah.
beautiful insight come to you in sharing that. It's been very helpful to me so far anyway as well.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I hope that, maybe from time to time you can check in, keep an eye out on, the different spaces or posts and everything, and just kind of, make sure you chime in and send me a message, and maybe you can come back on the podcast when the Facebook thing is more up and running and you've got more people coming, and maybe you can share like cool. Wouldn't it be cool if you shared cool experiences you had with readings and what happened and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, that would be exciting. I would be
Awesome.
so keen. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
Well, you're at the beginning of your day. I'm at the end of mine. It's 5:45 here and you're just getting started. So I'm going to let you get to your day. Thank you so much again.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's been a pleasure, Chris. Thank you for
Oh.
having me.
Okay. Blessings to you.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye. Well, there you are. That about does it for today. I think that was pretty cool. 3 people, 3 very interesting conversations. And I don't know, I think the one thing I take from today's podcast is that life is just beautiful, By the way, these 3 people, I talked to one of them beforehand, but for all these 3 people who shared, I've just ran into them on the platform of Quora, and we write and we comment, but I just threw it out there, and it's kind of cool. It's cool to celebrate life and just meet different people and be open to what they have to share and their insights. And I don't know about you, but I'm really enriched by this time, and so I'm so thankful for everyone who called in, and thankful for all the listeners out there who have listened and will be listening, and sending out just good positivity, healing vibrations from the Streams of Light podcast. I'm Chris Anthony. We'll see you next time.